Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Low Sale Circuits for the third round of the JAG Sunday League here. Hotspot on the call for you this time round. Once again, we've got a full 20 cars on tap for you tonight, this being the day after it was actually, I tell you what, the race itself was not bad. The Las Vegas Grand Prix ended at about 2 a.m. for me, Eastern Time. Well, no, that's not even true. The race started at 1, probably about 3 or 4, perhaps, but not a bad race. But anyways, our focus today is on Qatar. This track, as I'm sure you remember the controversy that surrounded it when we did race there in real life. What I do know is that this track does perform some good racing. This track has the one DRS zone, not a lot of, necessarily mistake generators. This track is about maintaining the flow as much as you can for as long as you can, and typically, we do get some good racing to be had here, so I'm really looking forward to this. We got 20 drivers on track, as I've said. Should be a very fun one here tonight. So, who's going to be our first driver out on track? I'm hoping that the problems that this track faced in real life get resolved, because I tell you what, it was a very fun-looking Grand Prix. And, it does have to be said as well, a lot of the times, at least from what I've noticed, of course, I've got, I don't want to say extensive casting experience at this point, but typically when we have a track that doesn't always perform the best races in real life, they do oftentimes put on bangers in the sim world. A good example of that is Hungary. Zandvoort puts together some good ones as well. Looks like our first driver out on track is going to be the AlphaTauri of Jake Snow Wolf. He'll be the first one to put down a lap here tonight. But yeah, a lot of those tracks really do put together some, absolute stinkers in real life. But then we come into the virtual world and racing's actually quite good. So, yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to it. While we have a minute, let's go over your drivers and constructor standings here in the JAG Sunday Series. As far as your driver standings are concerned, we do have Reimer atop the table, 43 points, only 3 points ahead of Jag Cheb in second place at 40. Actually, sorry, I misread that at first. It's 43 to 42, 1 point ahead of Jag Cheb in the second spot. We got Marsbar tied with TJ for actually a couple drivers here tied for third. Masbar, TJ, and True Loki God all amongst at 30 points for the third spot. Got Lord Alum, Ward, Jake Snow Wolf all at 26. Jaker at 23, Baniklash at 21, and he's tied with Bergen. That rounds out your top 10. Well, there's more than 10 there, but at least we got some. We got a lot good of. We got some great racing going on here, and I can't wait here. Jake Snow Wolf making his way around the circuit now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the constructors while we've got a minute. Currently atop the table is Williams, 102, leading Alpine at 79. 63 behind them is, at 63 behind them is Ferrari, and Mercedes at 55. Red Bull 54, AlphaTauri 52, Haas at 42, McLaren 24, Alfa Romeo 22, Aston Martin 16. Yeah, that was quite fast. I'm trying to get this lap together here. Here's Jake Snow Wolf into the first corner. Now, this first corner I thought was actually very reminiscent of Vegas's first corner. Just instead of it being a left-hander in Vegas, it's a right-hander. You can actually have two separate racing lines on the inside and the outside going through that corner. Could put together for some great overtaking. Out of turn 3, this straight before this double right-hander of turns 4 and 5. Pretty fast corners here. I believe when I was running the time trials my first time, you're only in about second or third gear once or twice on this entire lap. So it's a very fast circuit nonetheless. Jake Snow Wolf now up the hill through 7, and then back down 8, 9, and then through 10. Very much a winding section this. It's going to be about how well the drivers maintain the racing line tonight, how clean of a lap they do get. There's only the one DRS zone, so it's really more about making sure that you're in the right place at the right time, and, this track does allow you to force other drivers into mistakes, as we see there, the triple right-hander, 12, 13, and 14. He's actually almost gone wide coming out of 13. He's done well to hold it, and now, making his way through 15, down in towards 16, the final corner on the circuit. Pretty long right-hander, exiting, there you go, DRS activated now. And another problem, as we can see here, less than 10% as he gets to the line. It's a 122.881, and that's a pretty solid lap. Didn't see much wrong with it there. But Reimer will go 121.999. Separates himself from Jake Snow Wolf by almost 9/10 of a second. Well, the big thing here I'm noticing And this is something, we noticed in real life as well. Not a lot of opportunity to recharge your energy store. As you can see, Reimer, 16%. Jake Snowwolf had actually used his entirety of his deploy crossing the line. So, tonight, I think the race is going to be about energy management. That's going to be a huge one. As Maple Ace in the Aston Martin, he's gone recently P3 at the moment. As Stims, 121.968 puts 3 100ths back to Reimer. And we have ourselves a new provisional pole sitter. Naturally, everybody's going to be on the softs at this point in time. Next on the line looks like one of the AlphaTauri drivers. It's that of Ward, making his way out of 16 and down the it's a decently long pit straight, this. Down the pit straight he goes. It's going to be in the mid-122s, mid to high. It's actually 123.246. Ward P7. I'm sure he's capable of more. Finds himself 1.3 off a provisional pole at the moment. Next around the line, we've got one of the Red Bull drivers. I believe it's True Loki God, who goes provisional pole 121.747. That's 0.2 of a second faster than Stims. So, that is a very great lap there from Loki God. And I'm just wondering how much left Stims and Reimer have, more in them here. 2.5 of a second, that's quite a lot, realistically, in a track where, it's a very fast circuit. Yeah, that seems like a lot more of a gap to make up than it probably should. I don't know if that's accurate or not, if that's going to be, that difficult of a gap to come up with. But True Loki got a very solid time at the moment. Next up, I believe we do have the Haas of Stims is going to be on his way in. In front of him, it's... now, I've done the good old-fashioned research here. He is a Serbian, as far as I'm concerned. That's what his flag says in the game. I've gone to the good old-fashioned Google Translate, plugged in its name. Delia is how it told me to pronounce it. So that's how I'm going to try to pronounce it. If it's wrong, I do apologize. That is, I remember last week at Saudi Arabia, I did have quite the difficult time trying to pronounce that. But Delia at the moment, I think he had a bit of an off lap there. He's 8.5 behind the leader of True Loki God, so that one's not going to be one looking out for. Algeria's joined the session again. I remember he was talking about having some connectivity issues in the Discord earlier on, so it may be one of those days he just kind of has to get in and out when he can. We got the tandem of Red Bulls to the line now. Monza's gone P9 at the moment, 1.7, call it, off of provisional pole. At the moment, the top 5 look to almost certainly be in a class of their own. And P6 of Jake Snowwolf back to Mons there for P9. Actually, quite hotly contested, but we'll have to wait and see. With still 11 and a bit to go in the session, we'll have to wait and see how it turns out. I believe we have a Williams crossing the line now. It's either going to be Marsbar. It is Marsbar, and he goes 122.134. Puts himself within 0.4 of a second of a provisional pole. That's not a bad lap at all for Marsbar. And I like to believe he's got even more left in the tank here. We've got Jag Cheb coming out on the timed lap now. Let's go along with him. Into the first corner he goes. And I tell you what, he's taking the apex actually quite deeper, or as, tighter than I think we've seen some guys today. We typically see them take that first corner maybe a little bit more shallow, see how much speed they can, get out of the car. That's not the case. Cheb has gone for the tight apex here. And as you can see, he's using every bit of the track he can. He's not playing it shallow in any parts. He's getting his elbows out as much as he can and trying to carry as much speed. Up in towards Sector 2 now. This is going to be Turn 7. A little bit of traffic in the way. He's got the Haas to the inside here. Thankfully, the Haas has dived out of the way in the correct way. 8, 9, and eventually 10. Another one of the heavy braking zones here, only to 4th gear. I think he could have taken that a little cleaner. Not bad, though. Don't see much wrong with it. Purple Sector 2 at the very least, 54.797. And just look how he throws the car through that triple right-hander of 12, 13, and 14. Absolutely brilliant. And then the left-hander of 15. Down the stretch in towards turn 16. This is looking a good lap here from Cheb. Holds the exit nicely then. Coming to the line, he's almost there. It's going to be in the 122s. Yes, it is 122.438. Puts himself P7, and again, now getting into that 0.7 of a second gap back to provisional pole. As Baniklash actually goes 121.692. Oh, by the way, that's only put 5 100ths back to Loki God, so I tell you what, a great lap there from Baniklash, but Does Loki God have enough to strike back at the tail end of the session? And oh, by the way, Reimer on an outlap here, Stims on a flyer, making his way through the first section of the track now. So perhaps these are good times here. The mid-121s is a good place to be. How vulnerable are those times? That's going to be my question, as Reimer's going to be starting one here shortly. Maple Ace P6 at the moment, what does that say, about 0.2 slower through that first sector? What does he got here? Yeah, he's slower by about 1/10. It is purple. I don't know. Don't tell me how that works. He's purple in the second sector, but it's slower by 1/10. Not sure how that works. So that extends down to P8. Makes that within 0.8 of the leader now. Reimer starting one here, making his way through the second corner. This is another one of those tracks that, we were talking about it last time out in Saudi Arabia. Do you set your car up for the straight line speed, or do you set it up for the downforce and be able to, take some of these corners quicker than others? I think it's slightly a no-brainer this week. You'd want to have the high downforce, because obviously these, the tail end of the first sector in through, well, really, the end of the third sector is all high-speed corners. The front straight isn't necessarily that... I mean, it's a long front straight, but again, the only DRS section on track, as Reimer 53.812, 0.4 of a second quicker at the moment. This is turning into a great lap here for Reimer. 7.5 minutes to go. Through 15 and then eventually 16 now. We've got the Haas. Is that Stims? No, it's his teammate of SD Brown. Let's see if Reimer... Oh, the Alfa Romeo spun it around there coming off the corner. That's Delia. And it's going to be 121 at 3:58 for Reimer. Improves by 6.5 tenths. That's about 1/3 of a second back to Baniklash. We'll have to wait and see if Stims can improve here, and at the moment it does not look like he's going to be able to. Maple Ace has invalidated. Algeri now, I believe, has just finished a lap, so he stays at P7. Pinto on the cusp of being within that second. He's currently P9. Someone has just come across the line there, has actually gone better. I believe it was Rise, who's just put down a lap worthy of P6. Not that far, actually, between Pinto and Sheb. Less than 4/100ths of a second between the two. So again, pretty much, I tell you what, if you're in the top 10 here, you got yourself a fair shot of having a good race here at the moment. Very evenly contested. As it looks like Jake Snow-Wolf may have gone for a spin. This is in turn 12. Slightly slow. His teammate of Ward making his way through 15 and eventually 16 now. Somehow he managed to keep all the tires on the track. That was very close to being invalidated. DRS activated here for the Alpha Tauri. Currently finds himself 1.9 off the pace. Does he improve, or by how much? To the line he goes. He improves by 1/10. Not enough to improve positioning on the leaderboard, unfortunately for him. Behind him, got the Red Bull of Mons, who I believe is going to be starting one now. He's at 75% battery, so let's assume this is going to be the time lap. Currently sits 2.1 off provisional pole. Let's see if he can get himself into the top 10 here. Not much separating. Well, actually, I say that. From P9 back to P14, where Mons is at, that is a full second. So it looks like the midfield is actually slightly more dispersed than the actual top 10. To the line, I believe we have the Williams of Bergen, who has gone P13. 1.76 off a provisional pole. Actually, bests Ward by less than 2/100ths. Not a lot of time left here in the session, as we can see a lot of drivers in the pit. So we can assume we're going to have a lot of traffic here in a moment as these guys get ready to make their final attempt. Mons is 0.2 of a second faster through Sector 2. He's purple. 14 through 15. And eventually down the hill into 16. There's pit entry there. I believe the Haas of SD Brown is either getting out of the way or is taking a spin then on his outlap. 4.5 minutes to go. Mons coming to the line. Does he improve? He does. Only leaps one position. It's a 122.833. Goes from 14 to 13. And unfortunately for him, I'd have to believe that's going to be one of his final time lap attempts. So not the ideal session for Mons, but at least some of the drivers around him are not all that far off. As Delia just gone spinning out of the final corner. Yes, he has. Interesting. Next around the line looks to be the Ferrari of peak hour, who's on his way in. He's invalidated that attempt. We've got the Haas of SD Brown yet to put together a time, as well as the McLaren of Wee Magician. Let's go along with SD Brown here. Also on track, we've got the Mercedes of Banniclash. He's actually making his way at the tail end of the lap here. Let's see what he's got. Only 4 drivers out on track at the moment. Although coming out of the pits is one of the Aston Martins. It's that of Rise. Banniclash to the line goes 1:21.503, improves by almost 0.2 of a second, able to move within a 1/10.5 of Reimer's provisional pole time. Very good. Pinto's on his way in. Monza's on his way in. Delia, I believe, might be on his way in. SD Brown, again, one of those drivers yet to put in a timed attempt. We've got 3 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. And still yet, many of the top 10 are not out on track. Rise is on an outlap. Banniclash has just finished his. Everyone else in the top 10 is yet to come out. And with 2:50 to go, well, you'd have to think time to probably get to it. As we see now, slightly a queue coming out. We've got the Haas of Stims. I believe that's the AlphaTauri of Ward on his way, as well as the Ferrari of Reimer now on his way out. Or it could be peak hour, one of the two. SD Brown making his way to the line now. It's going to be in the mid-122s, I would think. Maybe low 123s. 123.342. Does manage to go P16. 1 point, well, call it a flat 2 seconds. As Delia is retired. So who do we have on an outlap now? We've got the Ferrari of Reimer. We've got Stims. We've got Maple Lace. We've got Algeria on track now. I believe we're going to get one of the Williams as well. And it's the Williams of Bergen on his way. And as you can see now, the queue to get out of the pit lane is going to be quite heavy. 1:50 to go. Thankfully on this track, as opposed to last week in Saudi Arabia, there is actually room to get out of the way for those untimed laps. So traffic may not be as big of a deal as it was last week. That's going to be something to look out for here. Reimer at the moment has relatively clear track in his immediate surroundings. Whether it stays that way is going to be the question. He's making his way through the triple right-hander now on his outlap. He's going to have to put together a good one here, I think. He's got a 1/10.5 to Banniclash. Banniclash has yet to come out. And at this point, I'm thinking he's running out of time. I'm going to go ahead and say Banniclash is content with his time here. So Reimer's in a good place, but how vulnerable is that 1:21.3? That's going to be my question. He's starting a timed lap now. Got a minute to go here. The tandem of the two Haas drivers out on track. Actually, I think SD Brown on his way in. His teammate of Stims is starting one in behind Reimer. Banniclash is on his way out. Okay, that's a little bold because I don't think he's got enough time to get back around unless I'm wrong. Yeah, he's only making his way into Sector 1. I think he's come out on track, and he's got no time to get back around. Reimer is purple Sector 1, 26.6, I believe that said. About a 1/10.5 quicker. Let's see, making his way now through the second sector. Has to be said, Reimer looks in control at the moment. Remember, last time out, he was side by side, lost the win of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix on the final lap, coming out of the final corner to Jag Cheb. The margin of victory was a 10th. 0.118 was the final time. Very good battle at the line between these two. And Reimer, I would assume, this time out, is going to be out for vengeance. Is he able to improve upon his already impressive 1:21.358? Time has expired. The final round of laps coming up now. Reimer to the line. 1:21.180. That's 3.5 tenths to Banniclash, who is not going to have enough time to improve. Stims has gone second, just about a 10.5. Mons has got a 5-place grid penalty for a collision with Arnie. I'm just wondering where that one's happened. I didn't actually get a chance to see. Maple Ace has gone 5th. Looks like the McLaren of Chuzix has gone 18th. The second Ferrari of Peak Hour has only managed P17. Loki God coming to the line now. Looks a solid lap here from the Red Bull. Is it enough? It's enough for second. 121, 249, improves by half a second, and is 7/100ths of a second behind pole. Let's see if Marsbar can improve here. He's coming to the line. Is he going to be able to put himself into the top 5? The answer is yes. 121, 969, improves by a tenth and a half, puts his teammate, well, I would say back to the second row, back to the third row now, as Jag Cheb has taken the 5th spot. 121, 870. And that, I believe, is going to do it for the qualifying session here. Reimer, pole position, only just. And if he's able to hold it into the first corner and after the first lap, that's going to be the question at hand. The top 10 cars, 11 cars, separated by less than a second. Less than a tenth. That'd be something. The top 11 cars, separated by just about a second. The top 14 separated by a second and a half. This is a very tightly contested grid. So after it's all said and done for the qualifying session, here's your starting grid. Reimer on pole by 7/100ths over Loki God in second. Stims third. Bannicklash fourth. It'll be Jag Cheb, last week's race winner, in fifth. Marsbar sixth. Bergen seventh. Maple Ace eighth. Ninth is Rides. 10th is Ward. 11th is Pinto. 12th is Algieri. 13th is Snow Wolf. Arnie is P14th, and I believe him and Mons both have 5-place grid penalties. For what, we're not entirely sure, but that's the case. SD Brown 16th, Peak Hour 17th, Chuzix 18th, Delia 19th, and Wee Magician unfortunately did not put together a time. He will roll off P20, so not the day the McLarens were hoping for, but I tell you what, a very solid day so far from Reimer, looking for vengeance after last week, and a good result for the Williams and Aston Martin team as well. I tell you what, I think we're in the makings for a very exciting Grand Prix. So the formation lap underway under the night sky here in Qatar. 15 to 21 laps is going to be the pit window, especially for those on the hard tire. And I tell you what, we got ourselves a good mixture of tire compounds here. It looks as if it really is about a 50-50 split between those on the mediums and the hards. A couple of drivers taking the softs here, that being Stims, Cheb, and Algieri, all taking the soft tires, counting on the early safety car. Reimer on the mediums, that was a given. Loki God on the hards. Well, this is an interesting top 5 here, because we look Loki God and Bannicklash both on the hard tires. We have Stims and Cheb on the softs, so they're going to be aggressive off the start. And then Reimer is just going to be playing that happy medium. No pun intended. Eyes are going to be on the Williams team here for me personally. Marsbar and Bergen have a really solid qualifying effort here. My question is going to be, can they get around each other, stay out of each other's way through that first sector? It's a sector that it does provide some great racing, but carnage is not out of the question, so we'll have to wait and see if the Williams team here, off the start line, can put together something clean enough. I think Cheb probably really going to be the solo driver to look out here, being on those soft tires. You know, and I tell you what, arguably, I mean, he's last week's race winner. Of course, a lot happened last week that's really sometimes got in the way of a couple drivers taking the win. We'll have to wait and see how it turns out here. Reimer, again, looking for vengeance after last week. It'll be very interesting to see if he's able to pull together and take the win here. I think he's absolutely got the potential to. We've seen him a lot of times just, you know, be on the cusp of victory, not necessarily have all the luck and all the ingredients in the same cake tin, but I think eventually he's going to get it. Could today be the day for Reimer here? He's got Loki God to his right side. He's going to have the preferred line into the first corner. Reimer is going to have to get away well here. Of course, Loki got on the hard, so his tires are going to be rather cold off the start, maybe at a disadvantage. We'll have to wait and see as the grid forming up here. Reimer, not that much track ahead of him into that first corner, but again, it's 2 lines of racing in towards the corner. As here we are. For the 3rd time this season, the lights are going to begin turning on here. This time, at the Losail Circuit in Qatar, we have 3, 4, and eventually 5 and they are off here. Now, Reimer, I believe, has gotten away well. Who hasn't gotten away well is the Red Bull of Loki God. He's got the Mercedes of Bannicklash down low. The Haas has gotten around him as well. That is a relatively poor start there from the Red Bull, as now he's being overtaken down to the inside of the Williams of Marsbar. Atop the grid, Reimer has stayed ahead. Stims is under pressure, or is pressuring the Ferrari here, but not necessarily in position to make anything happen. As they finally make their way towards the end of the first sector, it does look as if we're going to get through these first stages of the lap clean here. But I think it does have to be said, as Loki got down to the inside of Bannicklash here, that is a tough one to make there, especially on the hard tires. That one's going to be difficult, and I think that, at the end of the day, may have been a mistake from Loki God to select those hard tires, because now he has fallen down to P5, and there he goes. He was off track there momentarily, nearly in the gravel on the outside of turn 9. I'm not sure what happened there, but it looks as if Bergen, something's happened with him. He has fell down the order. He now finds himself 9th, side by side with the Mercedes of Algeria. Contact was definitely made. Somehow everybody's going to keep themselves together. Oh, as Algeria look into the inside of Rise, I believe contact perhaps again. Bergen had a look down to the inside. Naturally, oh, he's gotten into the car. Oh, and the front wing has come off. That will certainly be a virtual safety car, and it is. And unfortunate for Bergen there, who I believe his opening lap just definitely went from bad to worse. I think he had a fair shot going to the inside of Algeria that time. But, you know, at first glimpse, it did look as if Algeria just simply ran out of track room to give him. And that results in the Williams having to pit here early for the front wing. So after the first lap, Reimer has held position. Stims, Bannicklash, and Marsbar all up 1-1 and 2. Loki God has lost 3 positions, and it looks as if not much else has gone on. Everybody else has at least picked up a spot, minus Ward and Pinto have stayed the same. Chuzix, Delia, Arnie all up 4. Mons up 5. Peak Hours lost a spot. Magician up 2. Jake Snowwolf and SD Brown have all lost 5, and Bergen down 13. As Rise and Ward, Rise, and Algeria all picking up drive-through penalties for speeding under the safety car, the virtual safety car. That is a massive turn of events and a massive unfortunate moment for those 3. That is going to be so detrimental to their efforts here. Loki God pressuring Marsbar here. Marsbar, I tell you what, the back end of the car nearly got away from him, going over the raised curb on the exit of the corner. Somehow he was able to hold it together. That one did get risky. 0.2 of a second separating these two, and atop the table, Reimer only leading Stims by 0.3, as Reimer tries to block the inside, tries to cut off the toe, as Stims doing his best. DRS is going to be enabled. They won't have it this time. But if Stims holds this gap, he'll almost certainly be within DRS position next time round for when they enter turn 16, or sorry, exit turn 16. It's more the activation zone before the corner that they're going to worry about. Loki God to the inside of Cheb, making their way through the double right-hander of 4 and 5. Does he stay there? At the moment, it looks fine. Or sorry, that was Marsbar he was going past there. Marsbar actually went quite wide out of turn 4. And Loki God was able to get underneath and get the spot. 0.6 of a second here. Again, it looks as if Reimer's car, we saw this last time out in Saudi Arabia as well, Reimer's car looks better in the high downforce section. When it comes to straight line speed, that's where the car slightly starts to have its issues. We'll have to wait and see if that's going to be the case. Also in this battle is Bannicklash, who's half a second behind Stims, waiting. Is Stims going to be able to make a move? That's going to be the question, because if so, that's going to open the door for the Mercedes of Bannicklash, and perhaps we're going to get ourselves a three-car shootout into the first corner. So Ward is the only driver of those 3 yet to serve their drive-through penalty. I'm assuming he's going to be doing it this time. Exiting turn 16. There goes Stims down to the inside on Reimer. And Stims got the fastest lap. It's actually then taken by the driver on the hards of Bannicklash. So Stims on the softs, we kind of figured was going to be quick anyways off the start. And I think that's why Reimer didn't really put up all that much of a fight as he did with Bannicklash before. Or, no, it was with Stims before. Anyways, well, Stims being on the soft tires, we're not sure the degradation of the soft tires. I would assume it wouldn't be out longer than maybe 7 laps. But at the moment, the Haas is still pulling away. And that's going to open the door for Baniklash here, who, I tell you what, at the moment seems to be in pretty good position. He's actually right down the neck of Reimer here, putting on the pressure. We got a yellow flag in the back. It's between Wee Magician and Peak Hour. And something's happened with Peak Hour. I'm not sure what, but whatever it was has solved itself rather quickly. Arnie right behind the McLaren of Chuzix and D'Elia here for the 9th spot. But Chuzix hasn't gotten away all that well out of 10. At the moment, Stims has a second lead on Reimer. How quickly things change. At the moment, as they get to the activation, or the detection zone, well, I think Reimer's going to barely hold on to DRS then. Sheb has got a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. Not sure where he's picked that up, but either way he has. They exit the final corner. I tell you what, we just saw then, Sheb went quite wide at a 16. Reimer does have DRS, but it is fading. And now he's going to be under pressure from the Mercedes of Baniklash. As they start the 5th lap of the Grand Prix here, Stims has the lead. Reimer 2nd, Baniklash 3rd, Loki God 4th, and Marsbar round out your top 5. But it has to be said, lots happening here, and a lot of drivers under pressure for a lot of positions. In fact, Baniklash now within 3/10 of Reimer. Baniklash on the hards as well, but he looks so comfortable on the hard tires. It's actually quite surprising here in the early stages. Looks behind Maple Ace pressuring Jag Cheb here, making their way through 8 and 9 and eventually 10. Aston Martin really pressuring the Alpine here down to the inside. Oh, he's not going to have it this time. Tell you what, he is right there, though. He's still looking for it. That part's for sure. I think somewhere along the way, maybe Stims has made somewhat of a mistake here in this final sector. He's lost 0.3 of a second to Reimer. It has to be said, that's going to put Reimer in good position. Oh, I tell you what, he's losing more time. Stims, I tell you what, the crossover point might have just happened. Because he lost 0.3 of a second that lap, did Stims. Of course, I don't think it's going to mean much at the moment, although there's down to the inside at the back of your screen, Maple Ace has overtaken the Alpine of Cheb. That being for the 6th spot. Tell you what, we've got some good swapping about here. Arnie and D'Elia side by side. And behind them, the Red Bull of Mons and the McLaren of Chuzix. And these two still side by side now. This is going well through the first sector. Great racing here. As D'Elia down to the inside again. Oh, I tell you what, that would have been a tough corner to try to send it up the inside. Not really any room to make it happen. And not only that, but it's such a fast corner, it wouldn't really make any sense. Oh, I tell you what, the Alfa Romeo may not have gotten away there. Not very well. Mons is right to him. As Chuzik's behind as well. This is a very interesting battle here for this 9th spot. Very closely contested. McLaren of Chuzik's right behind the Red Bull here. Whoever's going to get away better may have the advantage. All drivers relatively even on energy store. Atop the grid now, once again, now it's about a second separating these drivers as we have the Mercedes of Algeria has gone around somewhere. He's parked it against the barriers coming out of turn 5. Doesn't look as if he's shed any front wing, so the virtual safety car or full safety car will stay in place. Here's Reimer, down to the inside on Stims. Has he got it? Only for now, but I think he has. Yes, Reimer has made the move. And now, has that opened the door for Baniklash? I tell you what, Baniklash almost tried it round the outside, then through 2. That would have been a wild spot to try to make something happen. As Marsbar picks up 3 seconds then. 0.2 of a second here for Baniklash, really close to Stims. Oh, he's gotten into the back of the Haas then. Oh, I tell you what, that was quite a noticeable hit then to the rear wing of the Haas of Stims. At the moment, it doesn't appear that either of them have damage. But gee, that one could have went poorly very quickly. Meanwhile, Loki God also wants into this battle. All the while these 3 drivers are battling here, the Red Bull has now entered the fray as well. got ourselves potentially a 4-car battle for the lead of the Grand Prix. As it looks like Algieri's retired, that being in the pits. Exiting 15, heading down towards 16. The DRS train is going to be in full activation as they exit the corner. Reimer's going to have one hell of a time trying to break the toe to the drivers behind him. He does, way off to the inside of the circuit. In fact, here's Banniclash down to the inside, and he does get it. He does get it over the Haas of Stims. Very nicely done. And now, I tell you what, Banniclash arguably has the better pace out of anyone in this top 4. And now really all over the rear wing of Reimer here. Is he able to stay within position? That's going to be the question. He's not really going to have a solid attempt until they get back around. It looks like the deceased Mercedes of Algeria has actually made its way back out on track. Might want to keep an eye on the thing here, because I've seen that cause safety cars before. A car that retires on track, in the pits, the AI takes over and goes onto the track. We've seen that happen. I've seen it happen. As it looks like the Alfa Romeo of Delia something's gone wrong with him. He's lost about 3 spots then, in almost no time. Well, Loki God, 0.5 of a second here. We haven't seen much of Loki God. Again, we saw him off the start. Now, he did have a relatively poor start. He lost about 4 spots on the opening sequence then. And again, he was one of the only drivers to actually select the hard tires within that grouping. So naturally, he was going to be at a disadvantage. And now I think he's going to be able to catch back up here as Banniclash down to the inside does get Reimer even well before the braking zone. Nicely done for the Mercedes. So I'm just wondering how comfortable Loki God is with the car. Oh, and the safety cars come out! Well, what the hell's happened there? Well, Delia has lost his front wing. I'm assuming that's in a very detrimental spot of the circuit for the safety car to come out. That is only one driver missing the front wing. It does belong to the Alfa Romeo of Delia, but we have yet to see where on the track the front wing is. In fact, I don't see it anywhere. Probably disappeared by now, but either way, that is a very tame safety car, that. If I was Banniclash, I'd be quite miffed. So either way, the safety car out here, the 9th lap of the Grand Prix. Edging closer towards halfway through. That'll be about lap 15, lap 16. So still a lot of racing left here, but this does legitimately change a lot. I think anybody who's on the mediums at this point, Reimer being one of them, may have a good little advantage here, should he decide to come in. I think it's well respectable enough time now to absolutely take the stop, which he is. Into the pit lane goes the Ferrari of Reimer, and I'm assuming he's going to get some behind him. Stims has actually played this brilliantly. On the softs, Loki God's coming in. That's slightly bold to me. Maple Lace coming in, he's on the mediums. Marsbar on the mediums. Pinto on the Alfa Romeo on the hards. Cheb on his way in. Arnie, his teammate, has stayed out. Mons on his way in. Chuzik's on his way in. Magician on his way in. Picard on his way in. Delia on his way in. Very few drivers have decided to stay out here. So Banniclash will retain the lead of the Grand Prix. Remember, he started on the hards, so he doesn't need to come in yet. Arnie will inherit second place after, I believe, starting on the hards. Yes, he has. So that leaves, at the moment, all but just the top 2 yet to make a stop. So, Banniclash has the lead here. It's going to take some time for the safety car to come back. I'll step aside until then. So sorry, I'm going to come back to it here. We got an interesting one. Mons is on his way in. That is a bold maneuver, as well as Peak Hour have come in. Oh, this is interesting. They're doing the old pit, go a lap, and then pit again. Ah, yes, very nicely done then. That's a very valid strategy, has to be said. They've completed the required lap on the other compound. They've put on the hards. And they don't have to pit again the rest of the way. I was going to say, prior to that, we had a pretty even split amongst the drivers who had pit. We had, I believe, 9 drivers currently residing on the hards. It was about 5 and 4 split between the mediums and the softs. I wonder if anybody else chooses to do that. Marsbar, Wee Magician, Dalia, do they try to do it? I would assume Pinto and Sheb, as well as Ward, might be able to make it. Still yet to pit is Banacklash and Arnie. The only 2 on the grid have yet to make the stop. Huh. Interesting strategy call there. I like it. Will it play out for them? I tell you what, Banacklash has really impressed me so far today. He has looked so consistent, so confident on those hard tires. It's actually been very fun to watch him, and we thought he was going to be at a disadvantage off the start. It wasn't the case, and if it was the case, he surely didn't seem like it. I would go ahead and assume we're going to have the safety car coming in at the end of this lap, although we haven't gotten the message yet, and, well, mid-sentence, there it is. So despite Banacklash and Arnie being on the hards, they are going to be, again, I think, at kind of a disadvantage here. But the question is Reimer, has he been able to get his tires up to temperature to be able to keep up with these two? That's going to be a big question on my mind. We'll have to wait and see. Reimer's done well so far today. He's been in some great battles with Banacklash himself and Stims, as well as Loki God's put himself into the mix as well. Not even halfway through the Grand Prix yet. We've had a good one here. Banacklash has decided now is the time. He exits the final corner, and back to green flag we go. Let's see if he gets away well enough over Arnie. I tell you what, Arnie, 0.4 of a second in closing on the Mercedes here. He's not going to be close enough to make anything happen. Meanwhile, Loki God to the inside of Maple Ace. I'm not sure if he was overtaking Maple Ace or it was more defensive to play around the Aston Martin. It could have been very close between those two. And now as they make their way through Sector 1, Mon's 3-second penalty for multiple warnings for him. As looks the Red Bull all over the rear wing of the Haas of Stims as he makes his way, tries to go around the outside through Turn 6. It's not going to happen then. As they make their way, I tell you what, Stims and Loki God side by side here. Maybe have they hit wheels then into the braking zone at turn 10. Stims has had to go the long way around as he lost the position to Maple Ace as well. I tell you what, he hasn't yet, although he's about right close to being so. Maple Ace around the outside. Loki's gotten past Arnie. He takes the 3rd spot. Again, Arnie being on the 11-lap old hards. Oh my goodness me, when we saw Maple Ace, he had gone kind of wide through the first sector of the section of the right-handers. And then, as it happened, Stims had then made the mistake, and I tell you what, we almost had a huge collision then. Jag Cheb trying to find way around Pinto, as Wee Magician picks up 3 seconds. Making their way down the pit straight. This is great racing here. Look at this! Oh, I tell you what, Marsbar wanted to get both of them into the corner. Didn't quite make it happen, as Loki God has gotten around Reimer through the first corner. We have a yellow flag at the back. Whatever it is, it's sorted itself out. I believe it may have been the Alpine of Arnie. He's gone down to P14, as well as Rise. Oh, and I believe we have another one. Something's happened there. Yeah, Rise, I believe, has been shuffled out of position. 2.5 separating the top 3 here. Maple Ace trying to fit his way back in. Of course, at the moment, it doesn't look as if he's gotten the... we've got slightly larger one at the back. Delia's gone off. Or Delia, however you pronounce it. Again, I'm sorry, I'm trying. ST Brown's picked up 3 seconds for multiple warnings there. So at the moment, we've only lost one. That was the Mercedes of Algeria before the safety car came out. He was not the reason. Oh, but there's a DNF. It is the Williams of Bergen. And I'm very confused as to where that's happened. That's coming off of turn 10. Doesn't look as if any other car is involved, at least on the first glimpse. Banacklash and Loki God. Well, why is Loki God coming in? That's a bold one. He must not be confident in the mediums. Probably going to be going back to the hards here. That's going to mean Reimer's going to take control of the Grand Prix, as well as we got a lot of drivers coming in and pitting now, which we just finished off a safety car. This is a bold turn of events here. I guess people are pitting, putting on the faster tires. We're about halfway through the Grand Prix. I would still think the hards are going to be the better compound to be on. But according to everyone outside the top 10, that's actually not, in fact, the case. A lot of drivers have now put on mediums. Safety car on track. I'll step aside again. So the safety car will be making its way in at the end of this lap. We are going to be crossing the halfway mark when we start the 16th lap of the Grand Prix. Majority of the field have now chosen the medium tires. It's quite interesting. Those in the hards are actually quite the minority here. Reimer, Maple Ace, and Stims are the top 3 drivers on the hards. Chuzik's on the hards. Mons, Jake Snowwolf, and Jag Cheb are the only other drivers to fit the hard compound tires. Everyone else, minus Wee Magician, is on the mediums. Here's a look at the penalties, and we'll keep that tab open. So Reimer's going to lead Maple Ace back to green here. We haven't seen much of Maple Ace today. He's only recently come alive here in the late goings, and Reimer's really taking his time with this start here. They've passed pit entry, and there he finally goes. Reimer, I tell you what, played the ultimate waiting game, and he's caught a lot of drivers out by surprise, especially that I believe one of the Red Bulls there, it's Loki God, it's either Loki God or Mons, as down to the inside. Loki God and Arnie are side by side there. That one got really close as we got 3 abreast behind. Oh, we got a big spin there. Several cars have gone off track. Arnie, Loki God, and Baniklash have all taken somewhat of a spin, this time coming out of turn 1. Thankfully, we stay green, and it didn't look as if much damage had happened between those 3. But either way, something has really gone awry within that group of drivers, and unfortunately for a couple drivers, which I really thought were going to have a good chance at today's Grand Prix win, that may spell the end of their hopes. For the time being, Maple Ace has actually fallen back behind Reimer here, outside of 0.8 of a second. He's very much under pressure from the Haas of Stims, as well as Pinto is in this as well. Arnie, a 3-second penalty, makes him the, 7th driver to pick up a 3-second time penalty. Well, 8th. Yeah, close enough. 0.2 of a second here. Stims is really trying to hunt down Maple Ace. And oh, by the way, Reimer now outside of a second on the Aston Martin as they make their way through the final couple of corners. Peak hour picking up 3 seconds now. It's actually slightly odd. I'm not rightly sure where he's done that. That's a weird place to pick it up. Bergen has left the session. Loki got up to 3 seconds. Actually, yeah, Loki got 3-second penalty for him. Ryzen SD Brown, I think the Haas has actually been properly overtaken then by the Aston Martin. This is good, though. We see a lot of these drivers taking up 3-second penalties. That means, you know, obviously some of these drivers are going to be have a benefit because of the fact that they don't have a penalty, but let's assume the rest of the grid does eventually pick up 3-second penalties. It's essentially back to 0, which we would much rather have a race with, no track limits penalties or no positions decided by penalties. As well, who's that there? I believe SD Brown. Something has happened with him other than perhaps it was the Jag Cheb. Well, Arnie and Loki God side by side here. Oh, that's definitely contact being made. But Reimer at the moment, 1.5 seconds. Back to the rest of the podium positions. And oh, by the way, Pinto still doing a good job poking his head into this battle. Haven't seen much of Pinto here. He's not even hardly using his energy store. Maple Ace is trying to use it as much as he can. He's not going to have to worry this lap. Of course, DRS not being activated yet. That'll happen next time by. But either way, he still would like to get closer. Pinto here really within the slipstream. Jake Snowwolf is actually losing a spot here. He's going to lose 2 spots. He's lost one to Mars Bar, perhaps as well to... was that the Williams then, or the Aston Martin of Rise? Bit of shuffling about there. Somehow they actually took that one quite alright for 3 abreast into the corner. Jag Cheb in position. He's going to switch back to the left side on Jake Snowwolf. As it looks like Pinto has gotten around Stims for the 3rd spot. So we have a yellow flag, and Loki God has retired, and the safety car out for the 3rd time today. Well, I'm not sure what's happened there with the Red Bull of Loki God. He's, I guess, found the barriers on the inside of one of the opening corners. But that, as Wee Magician picks up 3 seconds for corner cutting, that puts him up to 6. Now, this is interesting here, because Reimer now has a big decision to make. He's on the 8-lap-old hard tires. The majority of people behind him are on the mediums. Does he pit for the faster compound, or does he stay out and, hope the length of the tire life of the hards will just be better? He's on even Stevens with Maple Lace as far as that's concerned. Pinto on the mediums. Stims on the hards. Reimer, Maple Ace, Pinto come in. Stims stays out. Magician in. Mons in. Rise stays out. Marsbar out. Sheb coming in. Snow Wolf on his way in. Ward on the way in. It's going to be a double stack for the Alpha Tires. That's not going to end well. Peak Hour stays out. Chuzik's on his way, and I tell you what, a lot more drivers have pit now than I initially anticipated. Stims has stayed out. Rise has, I believe, stayed out as well. So the top 6 have all stayed out on track after pitting for the mediums the last time the safety car came round. That demotes Reimer to P7 behind Banacklash. Maple Ace 8th, Pinto 9th. Magician has actually gone to the softs at P10. Cheb 12th, Snow Wolf 13th, Chuzik's 14th, Sesty Brown 15th, and Ward rounds out the grid. Safety car once again. So the safety car will be in at the end of this lap. Stims is, I would say, in a relatively difficult position. 10-lap-old hard tires. He'll have to lead the grid back around here. Rise, has to be said, is in a great position to take this Grand Prix. The big question is going to be how many positions are swapped around because of penalties. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out. We're going to have 9 laps to go. This time by at the green flag. Stims is going to have to get away well here, because if he doesn't, he's got a couple of hungry drivers behind him looking to take the top spot, regardless of if they have a penalty or not. 0.7 of a second is the gap when they cross the line. Marsbar down to the inside of Rise, and it looks as if he's going to get that spot. I don't want to say rather easily, but I tell you what, Marsbar's done really well then. Oh, Rise has gone off track there temporarily. Oh, I'm not sure what's happened. I think Arnie's gotten down to the inside of Peak Hour. That being for the 4th spot. Banacklash is back in this battle as well, although he does have a penalty himself. He gets down the inside of Peak Hour relatively easily, and now the 2 Ferraris in position here. The big question is Reimer. How many positions is he able to make up? He's on the medium tires. It's going to be a tricky one here for Reimer. We'll have to wait and see. Not a lot of time left, and a lot of drivers in the way. His teammate of Peak Hour will thankfully let him out of the way. Or let him around. He'll get out of the way is what I meant to say. But either way, and we have a yellow flag at the back. Oh, I tell you what, that one got close. Wee Magician, something happened with him. Well, Maple Ace has relatively fallen slightly down the grid here. Pinto has just gotten around Peak Hour. As Reimer up to the 6th spot. At the moment, he'll take at least 3 positions, with the drivers having penalties ahead of him. He would much rather like to get it done on track, as Peak Hour up to 6 seconds now. Banacklash had a peek to the inside of Arnie into the 16th corner. Nothing to be had that time. Although maybe overtake button being used down to the inside. Stims leads the Grand Prix in an outright lead as well. Marsbar is almost a second behind as SD Brown is retired. Thankfully, that's in the pits. Banacklash and Arnie side by side. Contact being made for sure as Arnie along the left rear tire of the Mercedes. And thankfully, that one ends well. All in front of Reimer here. Reimer to the inside of Arnie now and will take the 5th spot. He's back within podium range, but he's not yet within range to win the race. And that, I tell you what, well, Arnie's picked up 3 seconds. He's at 6 now. Oh, it's going to be so difficult for Reimer here, because I tell you what, Stims, despite being on the harder tires, on the hard tires, 10-lap olds as well, he does seem to have just enough pace to keep going, as Marsbar on what I believe is a fresh mediums, now 8-lap-old mediums, but still not really closing in on the Haas here for the top spot, as Rise, well, I thought he was going to have a good shot at the win here. At the moment, he's actually kind of on the back foot, it has to be said. Oh, we'll have to wait and see here. Exiting the 15th corner, it looked as if Rise did better that time. And Reimer, 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. And if he wasn't on the back foot to begin with, he is firmly planted on that back foot now. As Stims has 0.6 of a second back to Marsbar for the lead of the Grand Prix. There's Reimer down to the inside of Baniklash. And I think, is he going to get it as well? But behind them, I tell you what, it's almost 3 abreast in the corner between Maple Ace, Pinto, and Arnie. Oh, I tell you what, very close between these two. Pinto and Arnie were side by side there still. Rise within 0.3 of Marsbar. I tell you what, Marsbar's got good pace. And all the while, Rise, that's going to keep him out of position to win this Grand Prix with this Williams in the way. At the moment, he'll be losing the spot either way. I think maybe is he hoping for Stims, being that he's on the older hard tires, that he'll, make some sort of error that results in a 3-second penalty for him, and then it'll be even Stevens and they can truly race to the finish. But at the moment, Rise has to get around this Williams. That is his priority because he has good pace, but if he's able to get around the Williams, he'll have a clean shot at Stims. Oh, I tell you what, this is very intense here. Marsbar, 40% battery. Stims has used almost all of his. Going down to the 16th corner now, Maple Ace to the inside of Baniklash with Pinto in pursuit. As they exit the corner, Maple Ace, they're side by side. Rise has picked up 3 seconds. As here's Pinto. Can he get both of them into the corner? Reimer side by side with Rise. Reimer actually does get around Rise for the 3rd spot, as Pinto will get both Maple Ace and Baniklash. Double overtake there for the Alfa Romeo. Very nicely done. And oh, by the way, Pinto, don't look now. If something's happened with Stims and he picks up a 3-second penalty, he's in position to win this Grand Prix. Pinto, a driver who, remained, I'd say, firmly under the radar, for the entirety of the Grand Prix here, especially, I think, last week as well. And he may be in position to steal one here. But it's all going to depend on Stims, if he can keep it calm, cool, and collected throughout these final stages of the Grand Prix. We'll have 5 laps to go at the stripe this time by. Reimer all over the back of Marsbar. He knows that if Stims makes the mistake and picks up the penalty, he has to battle for position here. In fact, either way, he's battling for position. Rise has fallen out of this battle relatively, has to be said. And so now Reimer... Oh, I tell you what, I don't think he'll keep the podium with penalties applied, especially if Pinto and Maple Ace stay clean. But for the time being, Stims is in a great spot, but now he'll have to avoid DRS. 5 laps to go this time by, and we've got ourselves one hell of a finish to this Grand Prix. Reimer to the inside of Marsbar, and it has to be said, I think he's going to get this one. Well, easily isn't the word, but I tell you what, Stims has blocked the outside line. Marsbar is going to drop behind Reimer. That was great positioning there for Reimer, who knew that if he allowed Marsbar to have the outside, he was going to get caught up behind the Haas of Stims. And that's exactly what happened. And now Reimer might be in position as Pinto moves up to 4th. Pinto has actually genuinely gotten around the Aston Martin there, as now both Aston Martins, P5, P6, and he's under pressure from both of them. Oh, the contact from Rise all over the rear wing of the Alfa Romeo, and somehow he keeps it clean. It's a 1/10 of a second now between the two for the top of the table. That's a lot of words. Still, Stims in a good position. He hasn't picked up a 3-second penalty. He doesn't need to panic. He just needs to keep it clean. If he does that, he will still have the lead of the Grand Prix despite how much pace Reimer has now through the triple right-hander of 12, 13, and 14. It's 0.3 of a second. DRS is going to come into play, and it's going to mean a lot. Making their way into turn 16 now. Reimer on the outside. Doesn't have it. He tries to look down to the inside as Wee Magician as well as Arnie have picked up additional 3-second penalties. As here's Pinto down to the inside of Marsbar is ahead. Reimer to the inside of Stims. He'll take the lead of the Grand Prix, or at least the first position. Remember, the penalty that will be applied to Reimer after the race. Oh, I tell you what, he's got to wait for Stims now, but I tell you what, if Marsbar is able to pressure Stims and get Stims to make a mistake, That could put him outside track limits and with a 3-second penalty. At the back, it looks as if we've had something happen between Jake Snowwolf and perhaps Chuzix as well. For the time being, okay, oh, what's happened here? Pinto's gone around! Oh, goodness me! Well, I better be thankful that ghosting's on, because goodness me, both Aston Martin drivers were right in position. They were going to absolutely eat the Italian right then. I say Italian, I don't know what he is, but he's driving the Alfa Romeo, that makes sense. And Pinto is retired on track, and you have to feel he was really on pace for a good result then. Yikes. Hate to see it, you really do. Hats off to Pinto for a brilliant effort he did have today. He stayed out of trouble when it counted, and unfortunately it's all gone spinning away from him. We'll have 3 laps to go this time by. We've got several drivers here who are really racing for position with their 3-second time penalty. At the moment, Stims is about 1.5 seconds away from losing the lead of the Grand Prix after penalties applied. Rise to the inside of Banniclash, he'll get it, and now Cheb to the inside. He's going to look for it on Rise, and I think he's going to get it. Contact being made there, and now contact again. Banniclash, I think, got a bit collected behind the Alpine then. He'll get the position over Maple Ace. Man, that one almost went bad very quickly. Chuzik's 3-second time penalty for him. That puts him at 6. Reimer, 1.2 seconds away from being able to keep the lead of the Grand Prix. Now, under a second, Stims is losing track position here. Remember, he's on the 10-lap-old hard tires. We weren't sure if the crossover point was going to happen, to where the mediums were going to be the preferred tire. But I think we found it. Only just, and it does seem to be only through the slow speed section that Stims is struggling. Well, it's about a 0.3 seconds from Banniclash back to Cheb for the 4th spot. Remember, Marsbar atop this train here. And by the way, Marsbar looking to pressure Stims for the 2nd spot. Stims does not have DRS to Reimer. If Marsbar can get around Stims, that is going to be huge. 2 laps to go. Banniclash around the outside of Cheb. He'll get him well before the corner. He'll take 4th. At the moment, the Haas of Stims, 0.4 seconds separate him and losing the eventual lead of the Grand Prix. And this is the part of the track where Reimer thrives in the slow speed. Or, well, I say slow speed. It's all relatively high speed, this track. But in the sectors where you need more downforce, Reimer's car comes to life. And that was the case last time out in Saudi Arabia as well. It's going to be a close one here at the line, but I tell you what, it does look as if Stims is firmly on the back foot now. Ward, 3-second time penalty. Puts him up to 6. As they make their way in towards Sector 3, it's 0.2 seconds between Reimer and the lead of the Grand Prix outright. Stims is going to have 1 lap here. He's got to put together an absolutely clean one if he wants to keep it. It's a 10.5 now. Marsbar has the ability to really mess Stims up here and try to overtake him. If Marsbar can get around the Haas, that will severely hold him up, and Reimer could really walk away with a win here. But as the final lap of the Grand Prix gets underway, well, that's Banniclash having to defend the inside from Cheb. Remember, these positions here are for outright track position. Maple Ace, I think, will take some positions here, but either way, he's got to make sure that he doesn't get caught up in any of these battles here on this final lap. I tell you what, great battling between Banniclash and Cheb here, side by side, and now, for the first time, Reimer is about 1/10 ahead of that 3-second window he needs to stay ahead of Stims. In towards Sector 2 now, and Stims now inside of 3 seconds, but outside of it again, and I think just that time exiting, turn 6, he's lost about 0.4 seconds. 3.3 the gap. Exiting 10 and 11 now. Reimer has about 0.5 seconds to the good here. Reimer, who we thought was on the back foot to begin with after the last safety car, and then after getting the 3-second penalty, it really looked as if it was out the window, but coming out of 15 and into 16, it's looking good here for the Ferrari. As long as he nails the exit of the corner, it will be all him, and I tell you what, it will be all him. Reimer, after last week, losing the lead of the Grand Prix on the final lap, will win the Qatar Grand Prix, as Stims, a great effort, will miss out by less than half a second. Maple Ace, after not having any penalties, will finish third. Marsbar 4th, Baniklash 5th, Cheb 6th, Rai 7th, Ward 8th, Arnie 9th, and Mons your top 10. What a very hectic but entertaining Grand Prix that was, and you have to hats off to Reimer here. He's firmly earned this one. The adversity was definitely thrown his way in the form of safety car after safety car. And, you know, for a lot of that, he was leading the Grand Prix. And he was going to be the guinea pig for the tire strategy for mostly everyone behind him. And it's all played out in his favor at the end. Very nicely done from Reimer, taking the win here in Qatar. So after it's all said and done here in the Losail circuit, Reimer takes the win by half a second over Stims after penalties applied. Maple Ace 3rd, Marsbar 4th, Baniklash 5th, Cheb 6th, Rai 7th, Ward 8th, Arnie 9th, and driver of the day as well after starting P18. Jake Snowwolf 10th, Mons 11th, Chuzik's 12th, 13th Peak Hour, 14th Wee Magician. Unfortunately, everyone behind did not finish today's Grand Prix, and if you thought that one was hectic, well, next week we head to the Baku City Street Circuit in Azerbaijan for the 4th round of the season. Hotspot, it's been a pleasure joining you this time out, and we'll see you next time.